Welcome back. Welcome back. I met Pastor Joe at a pastor's conference. He did not look well. He told me that he was on sick leave and that his doctor has told him that he thinks that the load and the work of pastoral work is too much for him. It's not a good fit for him. He even told me that some of his friends wondered if he should look for a different career. I asked him, have you thought of looking for a different career? He quickly and emphatically said, being a pastor is my calling. I cannot abandon my calling. I felt sorry for him because you see, my friend, Pastor Joe has confused his vocation and his career and has considered them as his calling. The objective of this coming video is to walk you through a process of discovering your God-given calling. Take a minute and watch. The last sessions and the last videos, we talked about character strength. We talked about how we define strength. We talked about the fact that strength starts with your God-given talents, multiplied, built up through the knowledge you acquire, the skills you develop, and the experiences of life. We talked about how that all of this is shaped together because we are stewards of God-given talents. And as a steward of God-given talent, you have a responsibility to know what you are given, and so you can communicate it and articulate it, but then you have a stewardship to invest it where it can grow to the glory of God and to the abundant life that He desires for you. And we call this living your calling. So this is what we're going to do in the next sessions. We're going to give you a process to help you take these strengths and begin to apply them to your life and your relationships and your responsibilities so you can fulfill your God-given calling. You know, if you meet someone on the street and you ask them what comes to their mind when they hear the word calling, what do you think they will say? If you stop someone on the street and say, the word calling, what does it mean to you? Our most natural reaction is to think of a telephone, the ringing phone, because that's what we have been used to. But I'd like to redefine the word calling. And for this, I'd like to go to the Bible. And I went to the Bible, and I have a computer program, a Bible program on my computer. And I did a word search through the whole New Testament on the word calling. And in one of the translations, I found that the word calling is used 19 times in the New Testament. From Matthew 1 to the end of Revelation, it's used 19 times. But then I also have another dictionary called the Strong's Dictionary, which allows me to examine the meaning of the word where it's used. So in the Strong's Dictionary, I found that in the New Testament, the word calling has 5 different meanings. 5 different meanings. That's in the original Greek. One of those meanings refers to a career or a vocation. The other 4 times, which is the majority of times it's used, it refers to being called. Someone calling someone. Jesus calling the blind man to come. Jesus calling the disciples to follow him. So, for the purpose of our discussion, I'd like us to suggest that we look at the word calling as God is calling. God is calling you and me. So that begs the question, why would God be calling you? Why would God be calling you? Way back years ago, when our children were small, my wife and I, we took a course called Parenting, How God Does It. You know, we were young parents kind of trying to figure out what this whole thing of parenting is all about, and that seemed like a good course. You know, it was one of those old, you had a cassette tape and you put it in and you listened to a speaker. And the teacher on that course made some very profound statements that really impacted me greatly for the rest of that time. He said that God is a perfect parent. He uses all the experiences of life for the purpose of developing his children. Those of you who are parents, I'm sure would agree that the mind of a parent is so intensely focused on the development of his child. You know, from the first few smiles, the first words, the first steps, all of these exciting things in the development of the child. And through that development stage, we give our children educational toys. You start with a little rattle, then maybe a doll or a little car. Then you give them blocks so they can use things. And then you give them more complicated Lego blocks. Then you give them a bicycle, and you graduate from the bicycle, and maybe with some fear, when they're 16, you give them the keys to the car. All of these are educational toys we give to our children. And this teacher said that God is a perfect parent. He uses all the experiences of life for the purpose of developing his children. I remember him saying that whether it be your education, your career, your children, or even your spouse, are educational toys that God places in your life for the purpose of developing you. Please don't go home and tell your spouse that he or she is your educational toy. It will not go very well. But all of these are gifts from God for the purpose of developing you as his child. I don't know about your family, but when our children were small, around supper time, you would hear a fairly familiar call. We call our children. I call our son, "Hey, Noel," that's our son, "come and help me tidy up the toys. Come and help me tidy up the toys." Did I really need the help of a toddler to put away the toys? Not really. So why would I be calling my son, a toddler, to come and help me? For the purpose of developing him, developing that sense of responsibility. I remember one day I came home, and our daughter Rebecca was 3 years old, and she was so excited, and she said, Daddy, I helped Mommy bake a cake today. You want to have some?" Now, did my wife really need the help of a 3-year-old to bake a cake with the flour spread on the floor and the messy hands? And no, not really. Why would my wife want a toddler to help her? Why would she want our daughter to help her bake a cake? For the benefit of developing this child and for the bonding relationship that happens through working together. So allow me to say, my friend, that unless your calling and unless your responsibilities contribute to your development and to your growth and the bonding relationship that you have with God, you may be in the wrong calling. You may be in the wrong calling. You see, your calling starts with a purpose. Having a purpose that's in perfect harmony with God's purpose for your life. So what's God's purpose for your life? You know, the early fathers of the church have some very powerful writing, and one of the early writings is called the Catechism. And in one of those catechisms, it says this: the chief end of man is to glorify God and enjoy him forever. The chief end of man is to glorify God and enjoy him forever. That's the purpose for which God created you. So all your roles, all your activities, all of your life has to be centered around that purpose. Because as you see that purpose for your life, God expects you to have a dream. God expects you to have a dream. I don't know about you, but when our children were small, a very common question was to ask them, "What do you want to be when you grow up? What do you want to be when you grow up?" You see, we wanted our children to dream. We wanted them to think big, to dream of what they want to be. Some way, somehow, we grow older, and people say, "Stop dreaming. Be realistic. Stop dreaming." I've got news for you. Your Heavenly Father wants you to dream. Your Heavenly Father wants you to dream. So what are your dreams? What are your dreams? I'd like you to watch this short video. It's a short 2-minute video. Watch the images, read the words, or listen to the voice as it reads the words to you. So what are your dreams? What are your dreams? What are your dreams for your personal life? What are your dreams for your family life? You know, Dr. Henry Blackaby wrote one of his best books called Experiencing God. Experiencing God. And in that book, he says, look for where God is working and join him. Look for where God is working and join him. My friend, I've got news for you. God is interested in your personal life and he's working in your personal life. God is interested in your family and he's working in your family. God is interested in where you work and he's there. He's in your church and your community and he's in the world and in the country in which you live. Look for where God is working. Start to dream and ask God to give you dreams. I know that sometimes it's hard to dream. It requires some skills. And unfortunately, many of us who have been living in this don't dream world have lost that skill. So for me, at least, that to help me dream, I needed a model that I can help me think through. Years ago, when I was reaching my mid-60s, people began to ask me, when are you going to retire? So let me share with you one of my models. You see, I had friends who have already retired before, and they really weren't good models. I didn't like the way their retirements looked, and I didn't know what I wanted to be when I retired. But God provided me with a model. Let me tell you about my model. His name is Ernest Lafont. Now, Ernest did not grow up with a silver spoon. As a matter of fact, his father left the family. He was only 6 years old. His mother died on his 10th birthday. When the 4 children moved to live with their grandmother, she looked at him and said to him, you're 10-year-old, you're 11-year-old, you have to fend for yourself, go get a job. And that little tyke, he went and got 2 jobs. Early in the morning, he'd go to the bakery, pick up bread, and with his bicycle, go around delivering the bread to the homes. And after school, he would go to the local restaurant and wash dishes until closing, and then go home and do his homework. He supported himself through school and through Bible college. There he met his sweetheart, Grace, and they got married. They were 19 years of age. After graduation, the church sent them as missionaries to Panama. They were in Panama for 4 years, and then they shipped them off to Egypt. That's where I met him, and he became my spiritual father. They were in Egypt until the 1967 war with Israel, and they were evacuated with Egypt. They had only 4 hours to pack and leave. They picked them up from Egypt and sent them to Lebanon. They were in Lebanon as missionaries until the Civil War, and there they were evacuated from Lebanon, shipped back to the States. At that time, he was 68 years old. The church said to him, you know, you've done a good job. It's maybe time to take it easy. He did some itinerant preaching, and then him and Grace went to Japan as missionaries, teaching English to the poorest of the poor. For 5 years, they were in Japan. Came back from Japan, did some more itinerant preaching, and then joined the police force as a chaplain. At 78. He was in the police force until age 84, and unfortunately he was fired from the police force because he fell down and broke his ankle, and it was hard for him to get in and out of cruisers. So he went and became a pastor in the local church, a pastor for seniors. At the same time, he was taking care of his wife, Grace, who struggled with Alzheimer. At 98 years of age, my friend, Ernest Lafont is still on staff at their church. But now, because he cannot walk very easily, he has a new ministry. It's the cards ministry. Every week, the church office sends him a list of the people who miss church, and he sends them a handwritten note, and he follows it up with calling them by phone and praying for them. You see, that's my model. Oh, I forgot to tell you, he remarried at 92. He remarried at 92. You see, and this is a picture of his new wife. You see, that's my model. When I grow up, I want to be like him. When I grow up, I want to be like him. I'm not going to be exactly like him, but I want to live life to the fullest. Who's your model? Who's your model? You know, you might say that this is an old man story and you cannot relate to it, but I really would like you to go to your computer on YouTube and just put the term man without limbs, and you'll find more than 379 hits of this young man, born without arms and without legs. Yet today, he is one of the most sought after motivational speakers in the world. He spoke in the White House in front of the President of Egypt and even at the World Economic Forums. He's built orphanages and he travels around the world speaking to high school kids and to most influential leaders in the world. And by the way, you're going to see a few video clips of his wedding. He got married to this beautiful young woman and they even have a baby. Is that your model? Who's your model? What do you think of? What is it you want to be when you grow up? Now, with your partner, I'd like you to discuss the following. Who is your model? Who's your when you look at people in your life, who is your model? Or maybe, what do you want to be when you grow up? What do you want to be when you grow up? What's your vision? Have a good discussion.